So before we move forward, it seems like a lot of people are having trouble understanding how exactly the input is received from the user. So I want to review that here. And if we look at our code, you could see it's kind of broken up into our main. We create our variables. We enter into our game loop. And when we enter into our game loop, we have that broken up into sections where we take in the user input right here in the for loop. Based on the user's input, we take appropriate action, right? And right here, so we're modifying the Y positions of the paddle and the X and Y position of the ball. And then we put everything onto the screen at those adjusted positions based on the user's input. And then we flip it to the screen, right, to the monitor. So we're going to take a closer look here at this for loop, right? So what is going on here? Like, how is this exactly doing what it's doing? Well, you could see here we have these different variables. They might be different for you than they are for this student here. But we have a set. We have move up, move down for the left paddle. We have move up, move down for the right paddle. Okay, that's what we have here. And what these different checks are doing is if the up key is being pressed, then the move up for the left paddle is set to true. And if the S key is pressed, then the move up for the left paddle is set to true. When they're released, then you set them to false, right? So yeah, I guess the story starts right. Well, and then another thing to note is that these variables here are all set to false in the beginning. So the story starts here with pygame event.get, right? So what that does is it receives all the input from the user. So the input means keyboard, mouse, controllers if you have them plugged in, all the input from the user. Okay, and the thing is that this while loop here is playing at 60 frames a second or 60 iterations a second because we set it to 60 iterations a second right there in the clock tick. So then this for loop is running once every 60th of a second, right? So then in that 60th of a second, if the user pressed W and up at the same time, then pygame event.get is going to return an array with the W key in the array and then the up key in the array. All right. So we might not be comfortable with what an array is. So if we look over here with R, if R is a variable, hold on one second. Okay, so if R is a variable, it would look like this, right? And we would have a value in here, like maybe D, right? And so if I wanted to print out D, it'd be very simple. I just say print R, right? Then it would go inside the variable R, find out the value, print that out to the screen. So that's what a variable is. And then what is an array? Well, an array is a set of variables that looks like this, right? And so if I have different values in the different variables, for instance, I have A and then N, I, E, L, right? How do I print out the I, right? Well, you can't just say print R because that's ambiguous, right? R is a set of variables. So to access the I, in an array, each of these elements, we call them elements, is indexed by a number. So that's the 0 element. This is the 1 element, the 2, the 3, the 4, and the 5. And we start with 0 because in computer science we always start counting at 0, right? As evidenced by the for loop. So then if we wanted to print out the I, what we would do here is we would say print R sub I. Oh, I'm sorry, sub 3. Right? So what is that going to do? It's going to say, okay, print an element in the array, right? This one here, and then get out the third element or the element who's indexed by the number 3, which is the I, and it would print out the I, right? So another thing to note here is that arrays and for loops are best friends. Why? Because you could do something like this for letter in R, right? And then you could say print R, print L. Okay. Whoa. So that's supposed to be an L down there. Oh, I could change it. Great. So L. So say OK. So what is this going to do? Well, we learned about this earlier, right? So how does this for loop work? Since R is in an array, L is going to be equal to the first element during the first iteration of the for loop. So we're going to print D, right? And then the second iteration of the for loop, L, the temporary variable for the for loop, is going to be equal to A, and print A. And then it's going to be equal to N, print N, then E, I, E, and L. And it would print out my name, right? So with for loops and with an array, you can keep track of a set of variables, and then with a for loop, you can scroll through them all very quickly, right? And edit them and change their values if you want. So for loops are best friends with arrays, right? And so that brings us back to what's happening over here, because when Pygame event runs, let's assume in our hypothetical situation that the W key is being pressed and the up key is being pressed. So what does that mean? That means Pygame event.get is going to return an array with W and the up key in it, right? Which means this for loop is going to run an event, the temporary variable in the for loop is going to be equal to the W key, the first iteration of the for loop, and then it's going to be equal to the up key during the second iteration of the for loop. Okay? And so another thing to note here is that these keys are not letters, they're not characters like the W character and the up character, they are objects. Okay, and we haven't talked about what objects are yet. We're going to get to that very quickly when we move on to Pong, but what an object is a set of variables. Okay, so I can say this is my object. I could say that is my object key. Okay, and my object key is going to have, or maybe event, right? My object event is going to have a set of variables, right? One of the variables is going to be type, and the type is going to be key down, and then it's going to have key, which is going to be W, or K underscore W, which is the code in Pygame which represents the W key. All right. So this key object, right? It's an object because it has two variables. It has a type and it has a key. And so type being equal to key down means that the key is being pressed down. It's being depressed. Right, and then the key means which key it is that's being pressed, right? You also have a possible type of it being key up, and key up means the key has been released, right? And those are two things that we need to check for, if it's being pressed or if it's being released. And so when we're over here, right, let's say we're in the first iteration of this for loop, its event is equal to the first element in the array, which is the W object, right? So then we're checking this, right? This is checking if the red button's being pressed on the top left corner. We can ignore that. Next thing we're checking is the event type equal to key down, right? So yes, it is equal to key down because I'm pressing the W key and I'm pressing the up key both at the same time. So I'm pressing down. So this is true, right? The type is key down. And then what it's going to check? It's going to check, okay, is the key that you're dealing with the up key? No, it's not. False, right? Then it checks this. Is the key you're dealing with the down key? No, false, right? Then over here we're checking, is it equal to the W key? Yes, this is true, right? So since this is true, we are going to set move up equal to true. Let me do a little bit of editing here. Move up is going to be equal to true. That's going to end this branch, which is going to end this branch. And then the for loop's going to iterate again. Okay. Now, I don't really want to talk too much about the next iteration of the for loop. I want to trace what's going to happen after this for loop finishes. Whoa. So S is down. Give me 1 second. This one is up. X down, X up. Okay. So the W key is being pressed, events equal to W, this is true, so then move up is now equal to true when it was equal to false, right? It was equal to false, that's what we initialized move up to, right here. Okay, so I press the W key, that means move up is equal to true. Okay, cool, the for loop finishes, it comes on down to here, right? Checks if this is true, well that's the right paddle, we don't really care about him, right? We care about the left paddle, so we're here. Right, so if move up is true or move down is true, and so move up is true, all right, because why? Because I'm pressing the W key, right, and that's what this is setting to true if I'm pressing the W key, and then it checks if move up is equal to true, and it is equal to true because since I pressed the W key, I set move up equal to true. So what is it going to do? It's going to set y1 equal to well, that minus equals, if I have like x minus equals 1, what that does is it's an increment decrementing operator, right? So since it's minus, it's decrementing. So its shortcut for x is equal to x minus 1. If it was x plus equals 1, then that would be shortcut for x is equal to x plus 1, right? And as we learned earlier, if you have the same variable on both sides of the equal sign, it is a counting variable, right? So if x was equal to 0, right, it'd be 0 minus 1, which is negative 1, so x would be equal to negative 1, right? Let's say we come back in here and this code runs again, then it'd be negative 1 minus 1, which is negative 2, and now x is equal to negative 2. So by doing this line of code here, what you're doing is just subtracting 1 from the value of x, right? And what we're doing by saying this is we're subtracting speed, which is, where is speed? Oh, okay, up here, equal to 10. Okay, so we're subtracting 10 from the y1 variable. All right, and so like the whole purpose of all of this reading in keystrokes is so that we can get the sprite to move, right? And so why is setting y1, subtracting 10 from y1, why is that going to make the paddle move up, right? Well, we already talked about if this is our screen here, right? 0, 0 is the top left corner. 0 is here on the X, and it increases to 970, I think. And then Y is at 0 here in the top left corner, and it increases to 520 as you move down, right? So if the paddle is here, right, then that means Y1 is equal to some value, like let's say 150. Right, that would put the top left corner of the paddle on the y-axis at 150. Let's say I'm pressing the W key, so I get to here and it does this, right? Now y1's not equal to 150 anymore, it's equal to 140, okay? So then it's going to come on down here where I blit to the screen, and what is blit doing? It's taking this surface, putting it onto this screen at this x and y location, right? And what is it actually doing? It's taking this surface's top left corner and placing it on the screen at this x and y location, right? So when we first ran the game and we didn't press any buttons, y1 was equal to 150, which is why the top left corner of the paddle was placed at 150, right? I guess we can prove this here, right? Let's go ahead and set this equal to 0, right? What would that do? That would put the top left corner of paddle 1's surface at the corner of the screen right here, right, at 0. So let's run that and see what happens. W, what is that all about? Oh, okay. Pygame event dot get. Run that right here, right? Top left corner is at 0, right? Top of the screen. Okay. Now if I come over here and I do height, is there a height? Win height divided by 2. Where is that going to put it? It's going to put the top left corner at the middle of the screen. Top left corner, middle of the screen, right? Okay, so what we did is we made this y1 variable, right? And we set it to the value that would put the paddle dead center in the middle of the screen. All right, so let's say that's 150. And we press the W key, which means move up is equal to true. That means this is true. That means this is true. that means this. Oh, I'm sorry. That means this is true. That means this is true. That means this happens, right? So y1 is decremented or subtracted by speed. Speed is equal to 10. So y1 is not equal to 150 anymore. It's equal to 140. So then when it comes down here to blit paddle 1 onto the screen, it's not going to blit him where it used to blit him. It used to blit him at 150. Now it's blitting him at 140, right? Which is slightly higher on the screen since the top is 0 and it increases as you make your way down, right? So yeah, it blits him higher up on the screen, right? We come back up into the loop. Let's say I'm holding down the W key, which means this is true, which means that's set to true. That means this happens right here, right? So now y1's not equal to 140 anymore. It's equal to 130, and we blit him higher up on the screen. Then it's 120, 110, 100, and as we keep going, it's going to blit him higher and higher up on the screen if we hold on the W key. All right. And then when you let go of the W key, you want that paddle to stop, right? And how do you make that paddle stop moving up and down? Well, you need to set this his variable equal to false, right? This move up variable needs to be set equal to false for that to happen. So we're checking this too. We're checking, is the event key up? This means that the key was released, right? If the key was released and if it was the W key, then we're setting move up equal to false. What is that going to do? It's going to come down here, and this is not going to be true. This is not going to be true. This is not going to happen. And y1 is going to stay the value that it was previously, which is going to, in effect, have the paddle stay motionless on the screen. So, yeah, so that's how this all works. And just one thing I want to note here is you can see the code here. We have if, elif, elif, elif. That means only one of these 4 things is possibly going to happen. Yeah, no, I think that's good. Yeah, no, that's fine. No, that's okay. Yeah, because every iteration of the for loop event is going to be a certain key, right? It's going to be either W, it's going to be up, it's going to be down. So only one of those 4 things is possibly going to happen. So we want to do elif on all of them. Same thing here, and we are good. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's about it. So yeah, wrap your head around that. And if you still have any issues with that, then we can talk about it.